Hey friends, what's up? And welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed, Daf 30 of Masechta Taanis. Friends, oh my gosh. Let's go weiter. So today's Daf, we continue talking about Tisha B'Av. It's very interesting stuff. Of course, I'm still sick. It's unbelievable. My mom has been sick for like 3-4 weeks already. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's his vaccine. Let me tell you. I mean, either it's the vaccine or when I went to get the vaccine, somebody else gave me something I don't want. I don't know, but I'll go upon him. It's a whole thing. Let's go weiter. So if Tisha B'Av Le'ochal Adam Beis Tavshilin Chule. So on the eve of the 9th of the month of Av, so a fellow should not eat 2 cooked foods. Amar Yehuda L'shanu Elo Misheshau Sulamayla. Says of Yehuda that this halacha is only from halfway through the day and onwards, 6 hours into the day and onwards. Aval, but mi Sheshau Sulamata mutter. But the first 6 hours of the day, you are permitted to consume 2 cooked foods. It says of Yehuda, says of Yehuda that that's specifically at the meal, the last meal that you're going to be eating before the fast day. So at that meal, you should not be eating 2 cooked foods. But in a different suda, in a different meal, so then mutter, you're allowed to eat 2 cooked foods. And the point is that we're being lenient. What this means is that even if it's in the afternoon, you're allowed to eat 2 cooked foods as long as it's not in the final meal before the fast. We need them to eat. If we would only know that you're not allowed to eat 2 cooked foods at the last meal before the fast, well then I may have thought, what if I'm eating the last meal before the fast in the morning? So maybe there I would be prevented from eating 2 cooked foods because it's the last meal. Therefore, Rav Yehuda Marab teaches that no, this is specifically in the afternoon. And if Rav Yehuda only taught from from 6 hours and upwards in the afternoon, I might think that as long as it's in the afternoon, so then you're not allowed to eat 2 cooked foods, even if it's just a regular meal, right? Even if it's not the Suda Amafsekis, therefore, Rav Yehuda Marav says specifically in the last meal before the fast. So, at your last meal before the fast, when it's in the afternoon, you're not allowed to eat 2 cooked foods. But at other times in the afternoon, right, as long as it's not the final meal, so you're allowed to eat 2 cooked foods. And in the morning, you're allowed to eat 2 cooked foods, even if it's the last meal. It needs to be the afternoon and the last meal in order to be prevented from eating 2 cooked foods. Let's go weiter. Tani Klishna Kama, Tani Klishna Basra. Says the Gemara that we have a brisa supporting the first expression of Rav Yehuda Marab that we're specifically talking about in the afternoon, and also a brisa supporting the second expression of Rav Yehuda Marav that it's specifically talking about at the final meal before the fast. Tani Klishna Basra. Here is the brisa supporting the notion that the restriction upon eating 2 foods is only in the final meal. Hasoyed Erev Tisha B'Av. If a fellow is eating on the eve of Tisha B'Av, if he's planning to eat another suda, another meal after this, well then he's allowed to eat meat, he's allowed to drink wine at this meal that he's eating now, if he's planning to eat another meal. But if he's not planning to eat another meal, then he's not allowed to eat meat and he's not allowed to drink wine. So there you have it, that specifically at the Suda Mafsekes, at the final meal, that is when you are restricted from eating meat and drinking wine, and I guess Memela also eating 2 cooked foods. Says the Gemara, Tani Kalishna Kama, and this taka also a brisa supporting the first opinion of Rav Yehuda Marav that we're talking about specifically in the afternoon, that you're not allowed to eat 2 cooked foods, but in the morning it's permitted. Here we go. Erev Tisha B'Av, lo yochal adam shnei tavshilin, on the eve of Tisha B'Av, so essentially I guess on the 8th of Av, a fellow should not eat 2 cooked foods. Lo yochal basuf, lo yishta yayin. He should not eat meat, he should not drink wine. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Uah, says Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Yishane, you should change it up, switch it up. Review the Ketzin Mishane. What does it mean that he switches it up? If he normally eats 2 cooked foods, so the Maisi he should eat 1 cooked food. Excuse me. If he normally eats with 10 people, alright, eating with 10 people sounds very, very nice. What, just on a regular day he eats with 10 people? Alright. So eat with 5 people. What do you do when you eat with 5 people? Maybe you schmooze. Alright. So if he normally drinks 10 cups, 10 cups? That's a lot of cups. What, do they have like tiny little shot glasses? Alright, I'll upon him. If he normally drinks 10 cups, so he should drink 5 cups. When is this? Specifically in the afternoon. Aval, in the morning. Mutter, he's allowed to, eat with as many people as he wants, drink as many cups as he wants. He can eat 2 cooked foods, etc. in the morning. Tanya Yidoch, we have another brisa. Erev Tisha B'Av. Then on the eve of Tisha B'Av, lo yochal, excuse me, adam shtei tavshilin, a fellow should not eat 2 cooked foods. Lo yochal basav lo yishta yayin, divrei Meir. Shouldn't eat meat, shouldn't drink wine. That's Rav Meir's opinion. Machacham b'omer, as the Chachamim say, Yishani, you should change it up. He should have to switch it up. U'memayid b'basav v'yayin, and he should minimize his meat consumption, his wine consumption. Ketzad memayid, so how does he minimize? If he normally eats a litra of meat, he should eat half a litra of meat. Alright. Alright. If he normally drinks a log of wine, so he should drink half a log of wine. Alright. If he never drinks wine, so don't start now. If he normally eats radish, I think that's what it is. Whatever it's known is, I think at one point in Masechta Brachos I made a mistake and Rabbi Yisrael corrected me. So Rabbi Yisrael, if I'm making a mistake now also, please correct me. I translated it's known as a radish. Is that correct? Or maliach, or some kind of salted thing, achar sudaso, after his meal, harishus biyado, he's allowed to. Tani yidoch, we have another brayso, kol shumushum Tisha B'Av, also lechol basar v'asar lishtos yain. When it comes to Tisha B'Av, so then on the Sudam Apsekes, you're not allowed to eat meat and drink wine. V'asar lichotz, you're not allowed to wash your hands, I guess. Kol she'enu mishum Tisha B'Av, but by the other fast days, the other public fast days, like I guess if there's no rain or something, mutar lechol basar v'lishtos yain, you'd be allowed to eat meat and drink wine, I guess before the fast. It says here also, but I think there's a different case that says mutar. Oh no, I think you could keep it as also, whatever it is. Vasar lirchotz, you wouldn't be allowed to wash your hands. Rabbi Shmuel bar Yossi mishum aviv, says Rabbi Shmuel bar Yossi, the name of his father Rabbi Yossi, kol shashu mutar lechol basar mutar lirchotz. If you're allowed to eat, if you're allowed to eat meat, well then you're also allowed to wash your hands. Okay. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis takatot, kol mitzvahs hanoagos be'avil. Excuse me. Any mitzvahs that excuse me, we have by a mourner, nagos b'Tisha B'Av. So any of the halachas of mourning, like when somebody passes away, so then those same halachas apply to Tisha B'Av. Also b'achila v'shtia, you're not allowed to eat and drink on Tisha B'Av. Now that's of course something, a mourner is allowed to eat and drink, but in addition to those things, also you don't eat and drink on Tisha B'Av. You don't use oils, you don't put on leather shoes, you don't have marital relations. You're not allowed to read from the Torah, from the prophets, from the writings, and you're not allowed to learn Mishnayos, Gemaris, Midrashis, Uvalachos, Uvagodis, all sorts of studying. But you'd be allowed to read things that you don't normally read and that are difficult, and since you don't normally read them, they're difficult you have to figure them out. They're difficult to comprehend, so that you would be allowed to read. And you can learn things that you don't normally learn. You can read the Lamentations, Be'iyov, you could read Iyov, Uvidvarim, Haroim, Shebiyirmiyah, and in the negative accounts in Jeremiah, V'tinokas Shabisrabon, V'telin, and even the little people, so they don't study Torah either. Mishum Shnamar, as the pasuk says, Kudi Hashem, Yisharim Samchelev, that the mitzvahs of the Eibishter are straight and they make your heart very, very happy. A mourner doesn't want to be happy. On Tisha B'Av, you don't want to be happy. So therefore, we don't study these things. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda af eino koi b'makom she'eino ragel likros, ve'eino shonu b'makom she'eino ragel l'shanos. Says Rabbi Yehuda that actually, we had said a minute ago that you'd be allowed to learn things that you don't normally learn because they're difficult, because you don't understand them yet. So therefore, they're hard, they're difficult. So therefore, you could study them as a mourner on Tisha B'Av. But says Rabbi Yehuda, no. Even things that are difficult, you're not allowed to study. But you are allowed to study Iyov. You are allowed to read the Lamentations. Uvidvarim, Haroim Shebiyirmiyah, and in the negative accountings in Jeremiah, V'tinokas Shabisrabim, V'telim, and the little kiddos, they don't study Torah. Because it says that the mitzvahs of the Eibishter are straight and they make your heart happy, and these are not times when we want our hearts to be happy. The Mishnah had said, the fellow should not consume meat, he should not drink wine. Tana was takatot. Megito is allowed to eat salted meats, and he's allowed to drink this very young wine. Ad kama, how long is meat still considered fresh? So Rav Chanina bar Kahanim Shmei Shmuel calls man shu kishlamim. As long as it's like a shlamim, right? A shlamim is eaten for 2 days and the night in between. So also meat, for the first 2 days, it's still considered fresh. But if you put it, in salt and you preserve it, on day 3 already it can be considered salted meat, and you can eat it, on Erev Tisha B'Av. V'yayin Megito ad kama. How long is wine considered like this very young wine? Kozmanchu toses. As long as it's Rashi says roseach, burning. All right. Tana yayin toses ein bo mishum gilui. You don't have to worry about revealed wine. Yayin toses v'chamet sisasu gimayam. It's for 3 days, right? Meaning, generally, if you have uncovered liquids, you have to be concerned that maybe a snake got on it and imparted its venom into the liquid. But we do not have to be concerned if we're talking about this very young, pressed wine, pressed grapes, for 3 days. Alright? Says the Gemara, Amr Rav Yehuda Marav. Oh, this is incredible. Amr Rav Yehuda Marav. So says Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. Kachoyim Ragel Rav Yehuda Rabbi Loi. This was the minig of Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Loi. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Erev Tisha B'Av, that on the eve of Tisha B'Av, Mevin lo pas chareva b'melach, they'd bring him, stale bread, not very tasty bread, but melach with salt. V'yoshev beintonu v'chirayim, he would sit between the oven and the stove. V'ochel v'shoseh aleh, and he would eat it there in v'shoseh aleh kiton shamayim, he would drink a bit of water. V'doma kemi shemesumuto lefanav, and he was as though so somebody had passed away before him. Friends, why is this so incredible? Because it is. Because I always feel like we don't know so much about Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai. He comes up all the time in the Mishnayos and the Brises. We don't know so much. I don't know. We had the Daf Yud Gimel of Masechta Eruvin where it talks about Reb Meir. We have Daf Lamed Gimel of Shabbos where it talks about Reb Shimon. we see about different Tanoim in different places, and I feel like we don't see so much about the life of Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai. Now, one place where we learned a shtickle about Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai was in Daf Chofei Omid Beis of Masechta Shabbos, and they literally use the same lashon. It's unbelievable, right? They say over here. He says, right? It says Rabbi Yehuda Marav, also in Masechta Shabbos. It says Rabbi Yehuda Marav. It says Kachoy Menago Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai erev Tisha B'av, and it says over there Kachoy Menago Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai erev Shabbos. It says Mevi'in lo pas chariva b'melech v'yoshev, whatever. Over there it says Mevi'in lo areva malei mayim. And then over here it says V'dome kamisha meisumuto lefanav. Over there it says V'dome ke what was it? What was it? V'dome ke. Oh, now I'm forgetting. Kemalach Elokim or something like that. Kemalach Hashem Tzvakos, something like that. Anyways, it's amazing because these are two snippets where we actually hear something about Rabbi Yehuda bar Ilai and his life, how he would act in Erev Shabbos, how he would act in Erev Tisha B'av, and it's like the same template. Super interesting. Tonight also we learn over there, Makom Shnagu Lasis Malacha B'Tisha B'av Osin. So a place where the minhag is that they do work on Tisha B'av. So you can do the work on Tisha B'av. Makom Shnagu Shlo Lasos Ein Osin. If the minhag on Makom, the place they generally do not do work on Tisha B'av, so then we don't then don't do work in that place. Now, no matter where you live, Talmidei Chacham should not be working on Tisha B'av. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Lolam Yaisa Kol Adam Atzmo K'Talmid Chacham, and says Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, a fellow can always consider himself to be a Talmid Chacham in this regard. Taanis Am Yachu, we talk also in a brayso like this. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer says, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Lolam Yaisa Adam Atzmo K'Talmid Chacham Kadeshi Yisan. A fellow can make himself into a Torah scholar. He can consider himself to be a Talmid Chacham when it comes to accepting upon himself the stringencies of fasts. And therefore also here, if a fellow doesn't want to work, wants to refrain from working on Tisha B'av, so he may do that. Tani Idach, we talk about another brayso. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer says, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Kol ha'ocha v'shosa b'Tisha B'av, a fellow eats and drinks on Tisha B'av, not a good idea. Kilu ocha v'shosa b'Yom HaKippurim, it's like he eats and drinks on Yom Kippur. Not good. Rabbi Akiva says, Rabbi Akiva Omer says, Rabbi Akiva, a fellow who does work on Tisha B'av in a simin bracha la'olam, he will not see signs of blessing forever. I imagine probably from that work that he's doing. If a fellow, instead of mourning Jerusalem, he's doing work on Tisha B'av in a row b'simchasa, well then he's also, if he's not going to be mourning on Jerusalem, well then he's also not going to experience the rejoicing, the happiness of Jerusalem. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Simchu es Yerushalayim v'gilu ba, be happy with Jerusalem and rejoice in it. Kol ohaveh, all those who love Yerushalayim. Sisu o ito misos kol ha-misablim oleh, and all the people rejoice. Who's going to rejoice? The people who mourn it. So Mikanamu, where they said, Kol masabel al Yerushalayim zochom v'simchas, a fellow who mourns Jerusalem will merit to see its happiness. V'she'enu masabel al Yerushalayim, a fellow does not mourn Jerusalem in a roy b'simchas, he is not going to experience its happiness. So therefore, it's good to refrain from doing work on Tisha B'av and instead be focusing on the mourning of Jerusalem. Taanis Am Yachu, we talk a little in a brayso like this. A fellow eats meat and drinks wine on Tisha B'av. All of the pasuk says about this fellow that their sins are on their bones. All right. Rabbi Yehuda says that taka, you have to flip over your bed, but the Chacham says, nah, you don't have to flip over your bed. Tanya, taka learn in the brayso. The Rabbi Yehuda, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, "Dvarecha, according to you, ubris umanikis mate alein." What should pregnant women and women who are nursing do? Do they all, how are they going to flip over their beds and sleep on that? It's not going to work for them. Oh, excuse me. Amar loim. So Rabbi Yehuda said to them, "Af ani lo amarti el biyachol." So Rabbi Yehuda says, "No, I'm only talking about if they're able to. A fellow who's able to should flip over his bed." Taanis Am Yachu, Taka learn in a brayso like this. Mod Rabbi Yehuda l'chachamim that Rabbi Yehuda taka the mitzvah the chachamim b'she'eno yachol, when he is unable to that if a fellow is unable to flip over his bed, so he doesn't flip over his bed. And the rabbis admit with Rabbi Yehuda that you do flip over your bed when you're able to. So so if that's the case, that they both essentially agree with each other, that when you're unable to, you don't flip over the bed, when you're able to, you do flip over the bed. So what's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is the other beds in the house, right? A fellow who needs to flip, so if a fellow is able to flip over his bed, so he flips over his bed, so then what about all the other beds in the house? Do you have to flip over those? So, Taanis will learn the Brisa. When we say you flip over your bed, it's not just your bed. You taka flip over all the beds in the house. Says Ravi that the halacha is like the Brisa that says that the Chacham did not agree with Rabbi Yehuda whatsoever, i.e. that you don't actually have to flip over your bed. Friends, that was the lamed of Masechta Taanis. I think I'm going to hold it right here because my voice is really shtickle schwer, but basically it talked about Erev Tisha B'Av and the restrictions of eating meat and drinking wine and other foods on Tisha B'Av, and we saw this awesome line of Kol Mesabel Yerushalayim Zochavua B'Simchasa. It's very, very gewaldig, and we talked about at the end about flipping over your bed. Machlokas Rabbi Yehuda and the Chacham. Friends, that was the Aflamed of Masechta Taanis. Peace.